here's always something that needs a little fixing on Farpoint Farms.
Hey guys, it's Eric, owner of Farpoint Farms here in the mountains of North Carolina. Tonight we go back to Repair World. I'm going to be doing some work on this 2002 Honda Civic with the 1.7 liter. This is pretty much the same for every generation. You know, the 1.6, 1.7, 1.8, they're all about the same job. I think all the way up into the 2.4 really. But it is the valve cover gasket. I'm also going to do spark plug tube seals, and I'm also going to do like the bolt seals. And while I'm in there, I'm going to go ahead and replace the air filter on this particular one. This is not a difficult job. In fact, if you have an 8mm, a 10mm, and a Phillips head screwdriver, you too can do the valve cover gasket on your Honda for pennies, because this kit was like $7 on eBay, and this was $7 on eBay as well. So for $14 and hopefully some tools that you already own, you'll be in this. So I'm not going to do a ton of like moving the camera around, because really it's a top-down job. I'll just bring the camera in closer here to the engine. I'll show you how to diagnose the leak, and we'll go ahead and fix it. Let's do it. If this looks familiar, then you're looking at the right engine. Signs that you've got issues: you can see the oil built up around here. I'm not going to bring the camera any closer because it's fairly obvious, but oil is dripping down, especially off the back here and down along that. So if it was a really bad leak, this being the exhaust manifold, you might even notice smoke, or you smell burning smell. So those are all indication that something's going wrong. I've owned this car for, you know, a very long time now, and I've replaced this valve cover probably 2 or 3 times. So if you have just purchased a Honda, or if you've had it for more than 5 years, you're probably due to replace this. And like I said, this is not difficult. Flathead, Phillips head, or 8mm and 10mm. Lots of 10mm stuff to take this off. We're going to remove this. We'll clean some stuff up, replace the gasket. A little bit of Permatex sealer wouldn't hurt either, but it's not 100% necessary. And that's it. So I'm going to grab my tools, put some gloves on, and we'll get going. If you're not going to do the air filter, you can skip this part, but I am doing an air filter, so I'm going to go ahead and pull that off. If you haven't done one in the last 15,000, it's probably due. As you can see, this filter's not even terribly dirty, but it looks like something's been trying to make a home in here. So I'm going to go ahead and replace that for sure. Filter's not even all that old, to be honest with you, but up here, come wintertime, critters start to try to move in. And it's a good idea to check these spots because, well, as you can see, they'll get in there and do some damage. All right, while I'm working, I don't want anything falling down to the intake, so I'm going to go ahead and stuff a rag down in there, and I'm going to remove my dipstick and just set it aside. And it's time to start disassembling the stuff that we have to get to here. So it's just not a lot going on. I'm going to go ahead and remove the 4 nuts here that hold down the spark plugs. There's no particular order you have to do this in. All right, once you got these, they literally lift up. I'll just tuck them in over here, just keep them out of the way for right now. And you can see they've exposed this right here, which is our little wiring harness, but we don't want that. We don't want that in the way just yet, so get this down a little better. There we go. This has to be removed first, so I'll go ahead and pry that back. You can loosen this up. Try hard not to break it. This is our vent here. Okay, we got that loose. I'll go ahead and unscrew this. Lift that up out of the way. And we're pretty much exposing the rest of our wiring harness here. These I'll lift up a little bit, pry on that. See, there's just a little clip right there on each one of those 4. I'll remove these. It's also a good opportunity to check down in these holes to see if you have leakage. You can look at those, see if they're dry. Once we got that out of the way, we're going to loosen up these 2 bolts here. That'll help us peel our harness over the back there. Then we'll unplug our EGR valve and our ECT here. That'll give us the room we needed. We can kind of flop this out of the way. That's about all the slop you're going to get out of that, but it's enough to pull this up and out this way. Now I am going to remove this bolt, and this lower one sometimes is necessary. That's going to allow us to push this over just a bit. It's a rigid line here, just a bit to kind of get this up and out. If your car doesn't have air conditioning, this line won't be there, but most of these Hondas were sold with AC. That'll give us just enough room there. Right down here that actually attaches to the valve cover. I'm going to remove that as well. See the bracket here? That's the bolt for that. So I'll slide that up out of the way. There's that bolt. All right, we're getting down to it already here, right? So next I'm going to loosen these two bolts here so I can push this whole thing back slightly. There we go. Now we're ready to take our last 5 bolts off and pull this thing out. All right, we'll pry this back out of the way and just kind of gently wiggle this thing up and out. Like I said, you have to move this hard line here just a little bit, but you want to be careful. There you go. Not to go too much onto that or you might damage that thing. And there it is. I'll lay that aside for a second. Again, here you can see the leaks better this way. So this is the old gasket here. I'm going to go ahead and pull this off. Get that out of there. Let's see, it's pretty stuck in that spot. And I'm going to pull out any Permatex. You can see we used some sealant here last time. Wipe all this down and clean it up and make a nice dry surface. I'm going to do the same thing with the valve cover itself, and we'll be ready to go back together. Once we have our beautiful valve cover all cleaned up like we do right here, and we have removed the bolts here, you got the long ones and the short ones, 2 long ones, 3 short ones. You just kind of pry up on the plastic, get those loose because they have that collar there, but just slide that up and out of the way. We're going to break those apart and replace those here in a few minutes. But we do need to get those out, and it does require a hammer. We're going to kind of pry them up and out before we can pound in those new ones, and I'll show you a trick on that here in a sec. There you go. So you're just going to kind of deform the gasket a little bit there to get those out of there. These have been replaced pretty much every time. Yeah. They're still a little bit stiff though. So you run the risk if you don't replace these things that the valve cover doesn't leak, but it leaks internally into the spark plug tube. Then you end up with misfires and damaged coils and stuff like that. So it's definitely important to go ahead and do that when you have this apart. Well, you're going to have to slide them in like so. And in order to get it, what I like to do is I'll get a socket that's the same size as that so I can hammer down on that. Looks like a 32 is going to do the trick right there. So I'll go ahead and place those in there, and then I'm just going to tap them back into place. That's it. Once you got all those hammered in, we'll move that out of the way for a second. I'll show you how I take care of this, because these things get quite brittle, and as you can see, there's a collar there, so you're not sliding that off. So I'll take a pair of side cutters here, and I'll just cut those. A little hard to do with the camera right there, but there we go. And once you split them, you just kind of peel them off. The new ones, the new rubber being soft, you'd be able to peel that right over the top of that, no problem. But these old ones can be really difficult to remove. There we go. I peel that out of there. Once you got the old one cut off and put the new one on, I usually just stick them. I'll stick the new one down over the hole, take that, and just kind of give some love taps until it seats. Right, I'll go ahead and do that with the other fork. Lastly, before putting this back together again, we actually have to replace the gasket itself. I've got that sitting over here, and these only go on one way. It could be that you have to figure out which way that is sometimes, but usually it's fairly self-explanatory. Okay, so I'll sit that down in there, but one thing that I do that I just learned years ago, and not even on Hondas, was that if you'll take that gasket, kind of get it so it sits down in here a little better, like so. Well, it's less likely to peel up on a corner when we're trying to snake that thing back in the hole. So that is it, my friends. It is time to reinstall this thing. And you gotta kind of snake it down in there. It's a little tricky. trying not to block any of what I'm doing here from the camera, but that's about impossible. There we go. And it's back in there. I'm going to take a quick look around with a mirror, make sure that I didn't actually pinch that in any place, but it felt like it went on there fairly bright. And it'll be time to reassemble this, and it doesn't really take any time at all to do so. Pretty much that. Go back in well. Stress on there. Okay. So that's it. Yeah, I don't know, man. If you were taking your time, this job might take 45 minutes to an hour. First time ever doing something like this. For a seasoned technician, without the camera on and just focusing on it, this is a 15 to 20 minute job, start to finish. And this job pays, I don't know, I would say the average customer is going to pay about $275 to have the valve cover gasket replaced on their car. A little bit of quick math for you, including the air filter, I'm in it for 14 bucks. So 14 bucks and a half hour out of my life, right? I keep telling y'all during these videos that it's a great idea for you to learn how to do this stuff at home if you have the ability to do so. Buy yourself a general service technician's tool set, which costs about 100 bucks at Cobalt brand or Craftsman brand, Husky brand, Pittsburgh, whatever. I don't care. You know, the type of tools that you buy just need to be a general service kit. Metric is what you want to focus on, pliers, hammers, stuff like that, screwdriver set, just your basic stuff. For that investment, well, you can do oil changes, you can do brakes, you can do valve cover gaskets, you can do pretty much 90% of the work that's out there. And you really ought to be, because it's always nice when you pay somebody like me to do the work for you, but I'd much rather see you keep the money in your own wallet. I'm Eric, the owner of Farpoint Farms Restorations and Repairs, and I'll see you next time. Take care.
There's always something that needs a little fixing on Farpoint Farms. Freedom is mighty sweet.